Thank you, Jonathan, and thanks for everybody for attending. In spite of the fact that as part of my wildlife biology training, I had to take and receive a charisma bypass, I think I would like to interact with all of you by getting you to participate a little bit. Everybody who did not win the lottery last night, would you please raise your hand and hold it up? Now hold it up. Hold up your hand. Okay, you're a loser just like me. I want you to answer these questions. If you can tell me what the jurisdictional area of the Teton Conservation District is, put your hand down. Why are all your hands down? You don't know this. Okay, Jonathan stole my thunder here, but for all of you who don't know what the funding source is for the Conservation District, put your hand down. For everybody who knows where our office is, put your hand down. If you can name the locally elected officials, all 5 of them, put your hand down that form the Conservation District Board. Who can tell me, if you can tell me, what the Teton Conservation District does, put your hand down. Okay, I've just identified our biggest problem or challenge and our opportunity. Okay? Now I have freedom to give you a bunch of information because I know you don't know this stuff. So I'm free to input into your bucket. The greatest opportunity and strength that the Conservation District has is its capacity to do conservation. Now, that said, conservation is not a fact. It's not something we're just going to be done with. It is a task. We do it over and over and over again as we go about our lives. The Conservation District is not a land management agency. We have those. It is not a regulatory agency. We have those. It is not a wildlife management organization, and it is not an advocacy group. Where it comes from is, just like us here in Teton County today, in the 1930s, humans were involved in a lot of practices that were not sustainable. And so, to help them understand some of that, Congress created and states have created this partnering agency called conservation districts. We partner with other agencies. We work largely behind the scenes. It is part of the State Department of Agriculture here in Wyoming, but we have locally elected officials. We have one here today, Bailey Schreiber, and you vote for them at every election, every 2 years. And these are your locally elected officials dealing with natural resources. We're the only ones. We are a cooperating agency. One of the strengths that's been given to conservation districts is we are a cooperating agency. Now, the full value and worth of a cooperating agency to federal governments or county governments or anything else is that we help them bring resources and information to enable them to do thorough and complete analyses of what their actions mean. So we are your locally elected representative to perform that role. Our funding, since 1990, you people have voted and chosen to tax yourselves, specifically to implement conservation efforts. In general, it gets us about a 60% approval by the voters each time it's come up. It comes up every 4 years. It will come up again. So what does that mean? For the 5 elected officials, they are able to hire staff to implement, help the agencies implement conservation efforts. It generates about $1.2 million a year. We leverage that to raise about, on the average, about another $30,000 in grants. 10% of that money goes directly back to taxpayers as payments to do conservation efforts. Another 15% goes back to taxpayers and agencies and nonprofit organizations to again take conservation actions, but those are organizations. We make individual payments. I have a stack of checks right there. Don't take it, Steve. a stack of checks going out to landowners who have done weed control. Okay? So we try to get as much money of that as we can back into the pockets of taxpayers. It's about 25% of our budget that we take in. We have 6 staffs with expertise. That's what enables us to be a valuable cooperating agency. We have a water resource specialist with a technician who works under him, a range and agriculture and vegetation specialist, a GIS wildlife specialist, and the socially maladjusted executive director who happens to be a certified wildlife biologist as well. What gives us our opportunity here is our strength and is our capacity. Our elected board members have created a 5-year strategic plan that identifies what they think you are most interested in having done and what is the most important thing given what we know about our environment to begin to enact in our community. Now, our jurisdiction is all of Teton County and all of Yellowstone, and I'm talking including Alta, Wyoming on the other side. And we do try to engage with that community to take care of their conservation needs. We have 6 broad program areas, and we have about 34 different funded programs underneath those. If you want that list, please go to our website. Another thing you didn't know, we do have a website. As our community, that's our huge jurisdiction, and we get involved with planning and that sort of thing with the agencies. But truly within our district, our jurisdiction, the part that's impacted the most is the part we're trying to live on, the private portions. We have subsequent effects onto the federal agencies. But a large amount of the effort that we make is focused on the private lands. We're the only, if the county isn't dealing with environmental issues, who should be? It's probably the people you elected to deal with conservation issues. So as we proceed to grow, the usual imperative is to understand what it is that we're doing. And we have the capacity to begin to build some real foundational information data sets that are going to make a difference. For example, one that you use a lot that you're not aware of came from the conservation districts. How many of you have seen the historical photographs of where you live on the county GIS website? How many of you use it on a regular basis to check things? That came from the conservation district. Those are the kinds of data sets that we think are really valuable to the community and helping us develop and live here in this area. We're looking at other ones. We've just looked at some heat thermal imaging of all the streams, all the rivers in our district that we can make available that shows you so much about our streams in a holistic view. Currently, we tinker with streams and enhance or restore them on a little snippet basis at a time. That is a recipe for long-term disaster when you don't know how the whole system is functioning. So the Conservation District is in a unique position to start to pull together those kinds of information that will help you folks know how to live here and how to express one of your inalienable freedoms, perhaps the least used freedom, which is the freedom to limit your own activities. So we have this inheritance, this great ecosystem, really high functioning, and it's beautiful, all of those things. We've also brought that inheritance to the marketplace, and we've been talking quite a bit about that today. We have Class 1 groundwater, Class 1 trout streams and rivers, productive fisheries. We have a virtually intact ecosystem with connectivity and biodiversity beyond what anybody else can experience in the United States in such a small area. We have clean air. We have beauty, which is another natural resource. What's the problem with all of that? These resources are so abundant and so functional that as we go about our business, the effects of those activities, our activities, is going to be masked. We won't be able to tell that we're running extinction deficits or stewardship deficits or degradation deficits until it's too late. Okay? And those kinds of mistakes are too expensive. You cannot recoup them. If we were to ruin the beauty of the valley, how would you ever get that back? Now that's a less alterable one, but you get my point. We don't have the opportunities that other communities do to restore or enhance or mitigate, because we're already functioning at a high level. So this is sort of a backwards dilemma. Is we only have one direction to go, and that's degrading everything. It's already functioning very highly, something that we need to cherish. It's very expensive to retrieve that kind of thing. Like humans, so here's our opportunity. The opportunity is sustainability. We've already been talking about it from the human side and a cultural side, and now we're talking about the natural resource side. That humans everywhere struggle with one concept, and that is the concept of inexhaustibility. We never imagined that we could possibly shoot all the passenger pigeons or run bison populations down that low, or that my car would have some effect on the whole global atmosphere. That's just really hard for us to think about. And we have such plenty here, the embarrassment of riches, that it's hard to believe that they are exhaustible. But already we're seeing changes in nutrients in Fish Creek, for example, that the Conservation District has been key in bringing out. We can see the effects of it. We don't know what the ramifications are, and we don't know what's all causing it. It's non-point source human activity, probably. And people are really coming together on the West Bank to look at all of those ways to cooperate to just fix their own problem, and it's great. It's a terrific stakeholders effort. This is the best role for a conservation district, because we are elected, our board is, to represent you. Hopefully when we go into the community and we act with the federal agencies, we represent the interests of all, knowing what we know about nature and natural resources. So I think what we really want is the greatness that we have right now. We want our kids to have that same greatness. We want the world, by inviting the world, to come and have that same greatness that we have. By the same token, I think it tells us, when we look at the human aspects that we discussed all morning, the cultural and needs and human pressures, that we need to ask ourselves when we go home tonight, why do we stay here? You know, you can get a great job, you can own a home, you can have mountain biking throughout the West, you can have culture in any number of cities. Why do we pay the price to live here with all these human problems? And if you go home and honestly answer that to yourself, you'll know that you have to do some conservation, because these things, as we've been told, are not inexhaustible. They're not guaranteed. The issue will be, as we break out into working groups, I think, and when we go home to ponder this universe, is can we integrate, as Susan Clark just reminded me, the human aspects, the people, the culture, the infrastructure with our natural resources. And it's hard for us to talk about that because there's such broad scale. So Jonathan has broken it out nicely for us. But indeed, it has to all come together. So with that, I want to thank you very much. Thank you, Jonathan.